Hamas militants on October 12 fired a barrage of rockets at Tel Aviv in response to Israeli airstrikes that targeted civilians in 2 Gaza refugee camps, the Palestinian group said. After Hamas terrorists launched a rocket attack in southern Israel in retaliation to Israeli airstrikes on Gaza, people in Moshe Haim Shapira locality in Tel Aviv have started fleeing residential buildings and moving to safety. Ezzeddin al-Qassam brigades fired rockets at Tel Aviv in response to Israeli strikes targeting civilians in al-Shati and Jabalia camps, Hamas said, referring to its armed wing in a text message sent to journalists. Marina, an Israeli whose building was destroyed in a Hamas rocket attack, has along with her family moved to her mother's home. She said there is much pain and she is unable to speak about Hamas's attack in Israel. Speaking to ANI, Marina said, "We are leaving my home. I don't want to speak on this as there is pain. This is hard." The war in Israel has entered the 6th day since Hamas launched a deadly attack on Israel on October 7. Israel has launched a counter-offensive on Hamas after the latter's attack. Israeli Defense Forces on Thursday said that they launched a wave of attacks with the goal of causing damage to the commando force of the terrorist organization Hamas. In a post shared on X, Israeli Defense Forces said, during the night Thursday, the Air Force launched a wave of 3 attacks with the aim of continuing to damage the commando force of the terrorist organization Hamas known as Nachaba by attacking operational headquarters which were used by operatives who infiltrated the Otaf settlements last Saturday. Meanwhile, Israeli volunteers set up relief camps in Sderot to help the soldiers and civilians. Volunteers provided aid by distributing food and other goods to soldiers and civilians in relief camps.
We are civilians. We are not defense forces. We are civilians. Our weapon is our spirit. I'm a volunteer. I don't live in Sderot at all. I came near Jerusalem. I live in Jerusalem. Left everything behind me. Left my business, my kids. I have 9 children. I left everything behind. Came here to support the people. Okay, and all the people that you see here are volunteers. All the food that you see around us was delivered voluntarily. Okay, and we deliver it to the people of Sderot in order to support them physically and also mentally.
So, what's the conditions?
The condition, as you can see, we are operating near the shelter over there. Once in a while, there are bombs and alert that we all running into the shelter. This morning, we are terrorists inside of the city, and the soldiers went after them. It's a war. It's a war. It's a war, and people cannot even really understand what's going on here. It's unheard of, this kind of situation.
Israel Defense Forces spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus confirmed reports that Hamas had beheaded babies in the Israeli kibbutz of Kfar Aza. The spokesperson said that it was hard to believe that Hamas could perform such a barbaric act.
All of the terrorists that made it in. The scenes are out of a zombie movie. It's a war zone. And I've heard a seasoned war correspondent who, after walking there, described it as the worst thing he has ever seen. Nothing less. And that should tell you something, how horrific the scenes were. So out of 1,000 people, Israelis who lived in this beautiful community, more than 100 were killed. And today the many body bags were evacuated from that kibbutz, including those of children and including those of babies. And we got very, very disturbing reports that came from the ground that there were babies that had been beheaded. And I admit it took us some time to really understand and to verify that report. And it was hard to believe that even Hamas could perform such a barbaric act. But after eyewitnesses came forward and after a senior official in the Israeli coronary service, Zaka, came forward on record on CBS News and said, yes, I saw the bodies of beheaded babies, I think we can now say with relative confidence that this is unfortunately what happened in Be'eri. This is what Hamas did to Israeli civilians. There was bodies scattered everywhere, mutilated, women and children that were handcuffed and shot, executed, houses torched and burned. and people who were either burned inside or suffocated, those that Hamas couldn't get in and force them out.
In his daily update video on the Israel-Hamas conflict, Lieutenant Colonel Conricus said the scenes are out of a zombie movie. Stating that it's a war zone, he said there were babies that have been beheaded. It was hard to believe that even Hamas could perform such barbaric act. He further highlighted the atrocities done to the civilians of Israel, including children. There were bodies scattered everywhere, mutilated, women and children that were handcuffed and shot, executed, houses torched and burned, and people who were either burnt inside or suffocated. Conricus said, "The Israeli Air Force has been striking a lot of targets in various neighborhoods in Gaza." He said, "We are prioritizing striking commanders and senior officials in Hamas. Whenever we have intelligence that indicates the whereabouts of the senior Hamas officials or military commanders, we strike in that location." The IDF spokesperson emphasized. The death toll in Israel stands at over 1,200 and more than 2,700 have been injured since Hamas launched an attack on Saturday.